Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about interracial adoption. So we're going to talk about some of the challenges that we have in our home with interracial adoption, and also how we deal with the fact that we are a different race than our children. So if you're interested in that, please stick around for the rest of this video. It was actually really difficult coming up with this video for me because it's so controversial in my mind, and so I was like, oh, I don't know necessarily, I have to be careful what I say here, so I wanted to really be sensitive when I talk about this, especially for my kids and for anybody else with interracial adoptions out there. I just want to be sensitive. So what is interracial adoption? It's also known as transracial, where someone adopts someone of a different race. It's pretty basic, and race is somebody that it defines someone's character traits of their physical appearance. So it's not necessarily ethnicity, but it's also like what they look like. So our kids have brown skin and we have white skin. That's kind of the story. So who are we and what races are we? So me, I am considered biracial European, i.e. a white American. I grew up, surprisingly, with a lot of Native American friends in my elementary school, so I did grow up with some culture of people of different colored skin than me, not typical to most American cultures. My husband, he is a white American as well. His family has no clue about his ethnic background of like what European countries he's from, but we're guessing it has to like some Scottish, Great Britain kind of thing. I don't know. Probably English. I don't know. Probably somewhere in there. And then
Jewish.
Thinks he's Jewish, but he's not. I don't think so. He's pretty white. And then Augustine, he's our eldest. He is a Karen, which is someone that originated from Burma, which is Myanmar. We call it Burma in our house because Myanmar, He was born in Thailand refugee camp, though. The Karen people were having a genocide and they had to be pushed out to Thailand. So he is Karen. Our second youngest is Nay. He is Karen as well, but he possibly could be a different ethnicity as well. He could be biracial is what they call it. He has a little bit more curly hair and darker skin, and the Karen people say he might have some Indian in him. It's unknown, but that'd be kind of cool. So we're still searching that out and wondering what other ethnicity is and he is. And then our youngest two, Jen and Gabe, they are 100% Native American, and they are registered to a tribe here in South Dakota. So that's who we are, and this is our context. So when I talk about our family and this subject, sometimes it's kind of confusing because a typical Midwestern town would be all white people, like all Caucasian, Scandinavian, Norwegian, German people. But in our town, it's very different. We have a very diverse town in the middle of America. It's like very odd. Like you go to the grocery store and you can hear maybe 4 languages, and that's pretty common. So like coming from our perspective, it's different. It's a little different. So like things I'm saying might not be the same for other Midwestern families. They might have more challenges than we do. For example, too, our church has 11 adopted children in it, and that's a church of about 100 people. So it's really small, but like adoption celebrated in our little church, and so our kids see it as normal. Also, our church is probably half of it's white, half of it's other ethnicities, so other races. So we are definitely a mixed culture. I would definitely say half of us are white Americans, but then there's also other ethnicities in there that are Americans as well, but they're not white, so non-white people that go to our church. So in our hometown here, we don't get noticed very much. We don't get asked too many questions. But when I do notice, when I even travel like 50 minutes from my town, I do notice people like kind of smile and look at us and notice that we adopted these children. I wonder if just in this town that I live in, it's just kind of more common to see like interracial families. I love that about our little town. Only twice have I been mistaken for my children's biological mom, and the first time was to a little boy. He was a kid that we were reaching out to, and he thought that I was married before, and I gave birth to Augustine and Nay, and I was like, oh, that's cute. And so it must have been an Asian man. And so I was like, no, that's Chad's my only husband, and he's white, and we adopted them. He's like, oh, okay. I didn't know, so it was really cute. And then another lady looked at me and my daughter and said, oh, I can see it in your face that you look the same. And I was like, really? I was like, I think you're lying to me. I think she was just lying to be sweet. And so, because we didn't look alike at all. But, yeah. So how do we talk about it with our kids? This is kind of a sensitive issue. One thing that we did do recently was kind of profound is, our youngest was like, just like noticing different colored skins and different things, and we let them like, you know, express themselves and say what they want to say, and then we go in and correct them when we need to. But we did let them have space to say, hey, you're brown, you're white. Okay, cool. Yeah, black eyes, I have brown eyes, like, whatever you want to say. Your hair's dark, mine's white. You know, it's just different things like that. But one time she was like, saying that she could tell the difference between mine and my son's skin if her eyes were closed. And I'm like, no, you couldn't. So we actually did it. We had her close her eyes, and I had her touch my skin and then her brother's skin, and she couldn't tell the difference. And I was like, you know, you really can't tell the difference. It feels the same. It's just different pigment in the skin. So like, we're just the same. We really are just the same on the inside. The part that is different is our culture. Culture is different than race in my mind. So we deal with that a little bit differently. We celebrate our differences and talk about our culture and traditions very often in our home. Our children know that they're Native American. They know that they're Karen. They know that we are Caucasian. We have very American traditions, Midwestern traditions, and they have, you know, their traditions too that we try to embrace and bring into our home. Different foods that we try to cook for them to be more at home, to things like that. Everybody has a say a little bit in that kind of stuff. We try to treat everybody in that way. And we talk about it quite often, probably once a week at least, if not more. It gets brought up and we talk about culture, but it's a little different than race. Also, our kids, we left them in public school. We have a Christian school in town, but we intentionally left them in our public school because our Christian school is predominantly white American kids, and we wanted them to have that full cultural experience, and our eldest not to lose his language, which is Karen. He can speak it fluently. We didn't want him to lose that. I wanted to maintain those cultural things, and I wanted them to not feel different yet. You know, like I wanted them to feel safe and feel normal. And I actually asked the three younger ones tonight, so we asked our three youngest tonight if they ever experienced racism before in their school, and all three of them were like, nope, never. Like, they feel pretty comfortable in their skin in our school system, and I'm really happy for that. I'm like super grateful for this small community that really puts that emphasis on you know, diversity. I really appreciate that a lot. It makes it really easy for interracial adoptions to happen. And we also let our children hang out with their biological cousins quite often, and that's how we help to keep them fairly normal and keep them with their culture and keep them connected to their biological families. It's kind of unique that we even know these cousins, and we're just grateful for those relationships. We try to build them as much as possible. Sometimes, though, here's some of the challenges. Let's get into those. It's very often that when I introduce my children, I will get the question, oh, were they adopted? It's pretty obvious that we look different. Sometimes I kind of make a little bit of a joke because before they meet the kids, I tell them about the ages that they are, you know, like 16, 11, 8, and 5. And everyone looks at me because I'm like, I'm only 30. They're like, oh, like, you must have had kids pretty young. And I was like, yep. And I was like, no, actually, they're all adopted. So we just try to make a little bit of a joke out of it, keep it light. Most people are just curious, so I don't like rip people's heads off when they ask me that, like, that's rude. You know, all my kids know they're adopted, so it's not like it's bad or anything. People are just curious, and they're normally super sweet, and like, they're like, oh, thank you for doing that. And I'm like, oh, thank you. You know, like, it's not that weird. Try not to make it weird. Sometimes, this is kind of a funny thing that happens, is when we take pictures and I do a filter, it's hard to get the right filter. I look washed out or they looked yellowed, so that's always kind of unique. It's kind of a funny one. So another challenge is, like, we thought that Chad's grandfather was going to have a hard time with our boys when we adopted them because he was in the Vietnamese War, right?
World War II.
He was World War II. So he was like pretty racist against people that were Asian, and so he's pretty like outspoken about that. So we were just kind of concerned, but actually he never even brought it up, never mentioned it, loved them like his own grandkids. Like, it was awesome. So, like, people surprise you. the challenges you think you have, you might not even come up, to be honest with you. And then most of our challenges, honestly, are keeping the cultural enrichment in front of our kids, making sure that they are connected with their culture, and finding and being creative about how to keep them connected to those cultures. I'm always trying to think of new ways that are like age appropriate, that they can connect with that culture that they are a part of. With Jen and Gabe, they have the ICWA piece, and I'll leave a link in the bio below about that, because that's something that we had to keep into consideration with them. And Augie and Nay, we have to be more intentional, because it's not required of us to be intentional with them like it is with the Native American people. There's only one time, like, really I felt like our town is a little like racist towards like other cultures, is one time when I was at work. This person was like, I'm trying to get out of this town. And I was like, what do you mean, why? And he's like, all the people that look like this. And he did like this Asian symbol, like, you know, made their eyes look like Asian. And he was like, I just hate those people. And I was like, whoa, like, that's really terrible. And like, I was like, I'm sorry, I can't help you anymore. And so I just walked away, just because I got real mad, you know. I was like, wanted to be like, those are my children you're talking about, what do you think you're doing, you know? Like, my mama bear and me kind of rose up, and I was like, wow, there is people that are racist still in the world. It surprised me. I got taken back by it. It's like hard for me. Like, I had to come to grips that you know, white privilege does exist, and it is going to be easier for white people in the Midwest than it is for people of color. And like, I continually tell my children, which is a challenge, I tell them that they can't wear their hoods up, they can't like dress like a certain way or look like a thug, so to speak, because I don't want them to be treated differently, because I want people to look at who they are in their action more than you know, what they look like on the outside. I don't want them to go into the store and people think that they're stealing from them. So like, I just want to like help them. And I know it's gonna be challenging, but like, I feel like it's getting better. You know, I was thinking about this the other day, and you know, white and black people could only have been able to get married for the last 50 years. Like, it was 1967 or something like that when that was legalized. And I was like, wow, like, we have come a long ways as a nation, and the fact that interracial adoptions are pretty normal and they're like very, very socially acceptable, like, I think that's really cool. But I think we have a long ways to go, but I think our children like are gonna have the last stream of that racism. I'm really excited about that, actually. At least from our perspective. Remember, our perspective is a little different than other people's. Something that also is kind of hard, is a challenge, is our eldest son. He had to have like a mini identity crisis, almost, about being torn between his family, us, and his biological family, because he is different than them now. He has this different culture of living with us, and he also has a different culture of living with them for part of his life, because he was adopted when he was 10, or like when he was 12, but he came home to us when he was 10. So like, there is a challenge for him, and I think most adults couldn't walk through that challenge very well, but he's doing amazing. He's doing so good at it, and like, we're helping him try to identify like those things and try to figure out like who he is as a man, even though he's only 16. It's just almost unfair that you have to have him go through that at such a young age. So kind of frustrating. That's definitely a challenge. Yeah. But it is getting better. So I just want to encourage you guys that it is getting better. And you know, it is very biblical for us to love all people. And like, Jesus told us to go into all the world and share the gospel with all people. And so for us, that means like what we're doing through adoption, but it also is like super biblical to love all people from all races. Doesn't matter what you look like, we're all God's children, and we have all the potential of being God's children. So anyways, that's all my thoughts for the day. I know it was kind of a ramble, a little bit of a rant, but I wanted to get this out there and start talking about it more and try to get it like nailed down in my heart, like what that means for my kids and their future. And so anyways, I hope you guys are having the best day ever. If you have any comments, leave them below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!